Right. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Gary Griffin from Advantage Business Systems, and it's great to have you with us today. I have Pietro today from Factorial HR joining us, and we are going to talk all about how Factorial is making HR smarter, faster, and less admin heavy. Um, so I'm going to hand over to Pietro. Please pop into the question box any questions that you might have. Let's make this as interactive as possible. But yeah, thanks for joining us. Pietro, over to you.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me, Gary. So really excited about chatting with everyone today. Really excited about the partnership that we have with ABS. We work hand in hand in terms of providing fellow BC customers a little bit extra support in the HR space. So I'm going to get into how Factorial slots into the ABS ecosystem and or the Microsoft ecosystem, and in general how we can guide some best practices in the HR space, not just with Factorial, but in general. Um, a little bit of background on me. So I've been in the tech space now for about 6 or 7 years. I have a tech research background, and then I actually joined Factorial in 2023 out of our US offices, and then moved over to headquarters. So I'm actually calling you out of Barcelona today. And I've been here for the past year and a half. And now I have the pleasure of being on the partnerships team for the UK market, and specifically being the partnerships development manager with Advantage Business Systems. Um, so yeah, so today really my goal is to kind of get into what are some of the ways that HR staff are challenged right now. What are some of the blockers that they face, and what are some best practices that we can do to actually smooth things out a little bit when it comes to handling such a complex role. So um, we're going to get into the inefficiencies. We're going to talk about how it can impact the business. We'll talk about how modern HR teams can do things a little bit differently, and what are some of the ways that technology can support this shift. And then at the end of the session today, we're going to have some time for Q&A. We'll probably leave it around 45 minutes, so there's an extra 15 minutes of questions. And I'll also be doing a quick run through of the demo environment that I have prepared for everyone here today. So HR and admin work. As everyone knows, it's a cumbersome job. A lot of the time, you have very manual tasks depending on the different areas of the team. So from the time management perspective and payroll, the manual work on spreadsheets and logging hours. From the talent perspective, people are doing performance reviews on Google Doc. There's no follow-ups after the fact with trainings and one-on-ones. Inventory for IT devices can be a huge mess. And then all that leads into scattered and fragmented data leading up until payroll preparation, which can sometimes take days or weeks on end. Oftentimes, what ends up happening with HR managers is they end up having to do the stuff that has nothing to do with their role. They end up spending 73% of their time on admin work, according to a study that Factorial recently conducted. So
Okay.
that is the irony of the system, is it's people who are hired to manage people that can't actually work with the people themselves. So where that time should be going is what we see on the right here. So hiring the talent, making sure that when someone's onboarded, those tasks that you see in terms of the manual spreadsheets, filling in the contracts, et cetera, that should be automated, so that we're actually focused on the training up and upskilling of talent, so that when they're brought on, it's not a shock and people can get started as fast as possible. Um, from an engagement side, everything to do with culture. So the fact that we can actually get a sense of a temperature check, conducting climate surveys, culture building and organizing events, and then offering ways for people to find paths towards leadership positions and feel optimistic about their futures within the company. The other reality is that HR is quietly holding the business together. So, right now, HR is touching every single part of the organization. So, they're supporting managers regardless of department. They have to make sure that compliance laws are respected, depending on the region. They have to make sure that staff members are engaged. They have to continue to support company growth, and they have to map out that growth path right now, and they have to hire the right people in order to do that. There's a lot of different ways and systems that people are using right now in order to make that happen, but um, really the ultimate goal is to have that in one consolidated solution. um, the friction with some of this stuff, and the main ways that they can actually put their hands in all those different pots, the manual processes. So not having the right tools in place, having their data siloed, having too many tools is oftentimes worse than not having any at all, and the endless admin work. And what's the cost of that? um, One of the ways that I looked at technology when I was in my tech research role was there were really three things that can impact your return on investment when you're deploying a solution. So you can either increase productivity, you can reduce cost, or you can increase revenues. In this case, the opportunity cost of not having a system in place is massive. So much lost productivity, frustrated employees. That's a really big one. Like in my experience, I believe it was SHRM, the Humane Society in the United States, that estimated that the cost of onboarding a new hire is roughly about £6,000 when it comes to the time of hiring them on the recruiter, from or hiring a headhunter to recruit them, bringing them onto the team, onboarding them for the next 2 to 3 months, and then finally getting them up to speed. There's a huge cost there, both in training and then the lost costs of having uncontented staff that are frequently leaving and leading to higher turnover. It also means that people are just frankly burnt out. So oftentimes, when they don't have the right tool in place, it means they end up having to take on a 200% workload,
Hmm.
and they can't actually really do their job, and they're forced to kind of bow out as a result. And then there's the compliance risk, which is really big. If you're not compliant, you have the opportunity to face massive fines, which can be crippling for business.
That's interesting. And out of those areas, so the friction areas, manual processes, scattered data, when companies approach you, which one of those would you say is kind of the first area that they would usually want to tackle that's going to make the biggest impact?
Yeah, so I'd say it depends on the industry. So for example, at Factorial, we've kind of got six baskets of goods that you can pick from. So the talent, the time, core HR, finance, IT. I look at from the manufacturing construction industry. Oftentimes, I think a lot of that has to do with the manual processes of um, it's an inefficient way of logging hours.
Yeah.
So you oftentimes have people signing up on a timesheet with a paper and pen.
Hmm.
Uh, that is really slow. It's oftentimes inaccurate, and then you have to digitize it somehow. But then people oftentimes fat thumb it, and then there's a payroll error, and you either don't pay someone enough
Yeah.
or you pay someone too much, and it can get really messy. So that manual process there is definitely tough, and the cost, I would say, on the other end. If I look at an industry more so like in the law firms that we deal with, in the professional services that we deal with, there's often an emphasis on the talent side,
Yeah.
just because with them, their concern is the career mapping and the career planning, and a lot. It's pretty remarkable. So many people still have they're doing their performance reviews on a Word doc that isn't signed at the end of the year, so it's not even legally binding, and they do it once a year, and then that's it. People feel like there's no path forward, and then there's a lot of turnover as a result.
Yeah.
So I would say those the cost associated is really dependent on the industry.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
And then I would say just in general to talk about how Factorial can factor into that. So um, like I mentioned, I'm in Barcelona, which is our headquarters here. Our value proposition is really to be that all in one. So We're one of the fastest growing HR businesses in the world. When I started, which was 3 years ago, we were about 800 staff. Now we're 1,500.
Wow.
And when we started in 2016, it was really in Spain. And then the company really exploded in 2021. So we reached $1 billion valuation within our first 5 years. And then that's when investment into other regions and other functionalities really took off. Most
Yeah.
recently, we've really invested in the UK. So, we've hired tons of people on our partnerships team. And now we're looking at around 450 clients in the UK alone. Globally, we're at about 15,000. And now we've got about 1 million people using the platform every single day. So
That's
it's a really,
quite, yeah, that's really good. What do you think is driving that growth? I mean, there are a lot of HR systems that will claim to be the best and claim to
yeah.
have the biggest number of users. But what makes Factorial, why the rapid growth?
Yeah, I mean, I think for one, the all-in-one nature, especially in the SMB space, oftentimes there are vendors out there like a Lattice for performance or a Team Tailor for ATS that are really good tools, but they're standalones. They're
Mm,
really focused on one thing, and oftentimes small businesses when they're getting something and it's their first time ever spending anything on a tool. The last thing they want to do is go grocery shopping for a lot of
yeah.
different items. Um, we're really giving them a space where it's meant for SMBs. So the usability is really high, the
Mm.
implementation time is fast, and it's simple. For the majority of our clients, it's the first or second tool that they've ever worked with. So um, the fact that they can do everything for a tool that's really meant for the SMB market, I think, has led to a huge amount of success.
Nice.
Um, this is a kind of quick snapshot in terms of the different functionality here. So you can see that we've got the mobile app and the dashboard, but I always like to talk about it in terms of baskets of goods. And there's really these four that are the main ones. So no matter where you go with Factorial, you're always going to have the kind of core HR functionality. So the employee portal, document management, the analytics. Then you'll have the talent side. So your performance reviews, your recruitment, your LMS, finance for procurement, accounts payable and expending, and then the operations side for the time tracking. Also important to note, you don't necessarily have to get everything in here. We pick and choose the bundle based off of the client's needs.
And how easy is it to, say, for example, if you start with the employee platform and operations, how easy is it then to add in a year or 2 years the talent aspect?
Yeah, it very simple. So like I would say on average, for our most, so typically whenever we're talking about the bundling, we'll do one of these, like we'll do core with talent,
Hmm.
and then people can increase in terms of functionality. So if you're starting with, two of the six bundles, typically you're looking at around 4 to 6 weeks for
Okay.
implementation. So if you want to just ad hoc, 6 months
Yeah.
down the road, add something like expenses because you didn't do it originally.
Hmm.
That's a week or 2 weeks to set it up and everything. To be honest, the timeline that I put in there is I always like to go conservative with the timelines, but it
Yeah.
really just depends on the availability
Yeah, of course.
of the person that's setting it up. So you'll have a dedicated onboarding specialist, and then you meet with them one on one, and then from there we do a roadmap of what are the priorities. Typically, it's one onboarding session a week, so which is an hour, and then an hour of homework maybe. So if you make yourself available, you can have all those sessions in the same week if you want.
Hmm. Okay, thank you.
And then this is some of the other stuff that we have going on and what our roadmap is. So we also have the Factorial IT functionality. So you're able to do device inventory, but also go in and do mobile device management and actually go and purchase goods on the marketplace. And then we have everything to do with compensation. So We're in about 92 different countries, so we're not necessarily going to do payroll in all of them. What we do have is a lot of partners like yourself, but
Yeah.
in the payroll space. So, for example, in the UK, it's Pay Captain and Say 50. And then depending on where we're at, we'll integrate with other solutions depending on what's most popular in the country. And then the other important part of this actually that I wanted to get into is the AI functionality. So Factorial 1 that you can see here. Um, One of the really important launch pads for us was the partnership with Microsoft. I'm actually going to skip ahead here a little bit. So we partnered with Microsoft in 2024. In that time, we saw that with Microsoft, there was a bit of a gap in the market. So, you know, the HR solutions that they offer aren't necessarily best suited for people in our customer profile, which are typically in the hundreds.
Hmm.
So they recommended us as an alternative to their solution, and that's why we've gone along so well with ABS as well. So with us, everything that you'll see in terms of the time tracking, the projects, the employee data, the expenses will all flow into Business Central. The other benefit of that partnership is that you'll also have an AI agent, Factorial One, which is actually built on Foundry and connects to Copilot. So, for example, if you request time off in your Copilot, it will flow into Factorial in our HR space and put in that request for you in your HRIS. So, the Microsoft partnerships arguably our most important one, and one that we're really excited about moving forward. So, not just with Dynamics, so everything in the Microsoft tech stack, Outlook, LinkedIn, Teams, Azure, Power BI, a lot of overlap in terms of functionality and a need for it to communicate into to your Microsoft tech stack. So we've made sure that that it's all connected based on our open API.
Okay, and do you see a lot of customers integrating across kind of multiple apps from day one, or do they scale into it?
So I think usually they scale into it. I think the initial draw is that the options are there.
Yep,
Um, with the ones that we already have natively built out, it makes it quite easy. So
exactly.
if someone is a Microsoft customer and you know they're already on Business Central, that's a huge plus. And then again, because of the open API, we've got
Mm,
286 integrations and we're always building out more. So
yeah,
um, one example that comes up a lot is when people are hiring, especially in niche industries or roles, they'll look outside of the
yeah.
typical applicant tracking system like a LinkedIn or an Indeed for their job boards. We can build out, so if they're really specific and there's a specific talent board they want to integrate with, we can always build those out too.
Okay.
And this was some of the AI functionality that I wanted to get into and show just on this quick little demo here. But the Copilot agent is really big. So anything HR related that you'd like to do in Copilot, you'll be able to do in Factorial as well. And I can show you guys on a little demo in a second. And then to talk about what our customer profile looks like. So I know every business says this, but we really are industry agnostic.
Mhm.
We've got about 15,000 clients. I would say we're industry agnostic as well, just because naturally everyone needs an HR system.
Yeah.
Uh, so it's not like a specific industry wouldn't make use of it. And kind of going back, I'll actually just get back a little bit. Um, the type of bundle that we offer goes back to the friction that we were talking about earlier. It really depends on the client needs. Like for myself, when I talk to clients in the construction manufacturing, again, they're not necessarily as focused on doing something like a climate survey for
Yeah.
staff. Like they really just want to find the most practical tool for them to do their rotas and
Hmm.
then have their staff clock in and out on site and make sure that they're on site when they do it. Whereas something like IT firm, well, they're going to be focused on job categories and promotions and competencies and training their staff and making sure that they have the certifications that they need in order to do their job.
Yeah.
But yeah, leading into that, so Grant Thornton, Five Guys, Warner Bros, Moet Hennessy, and about 15,000 others have already started using Factorial. It's really exploded in those last 3 years since I've joined. So it's been a really exciting time to work with Factorial. I'm gonna go ahead and hop into my environment.
Yeah. Perfect.
If I stop sharing my screen here, can I still share again? I believe I should be able to. Just 1 second. Gonna hop into my environment. Perfect. Okay. So with that being said, welcome to Factorial. So this is the dashboard, and this is the first thing that people are going to see when they log into the system. It's important to note that the left-hand side here is how we're going to navigate the tool. And like we were seeing on that flow chart earlier, I've enabled everything in my demo environment, but that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm going to see everything. So if we're not using the IT portion, it won't be visible. Same thing with finance as well. And then that will also be reflected into the dashboard. So if my staff are clocking in and out, they're able to do so from the dashboard. Your inbox, which will be linked to your email, the events page, etc. The other important thing to note with events in Factorial in general is we have the emphasis on the UK, but we're a global company. We've got operations in 92 different countries. You can use the platform in about 15 languages. So if you have staff that are, or your organization in general is multinational, we'll be able to have multiple legal entities within the same solution. And we'll also be able to have multiple workplaces and then assign bank holidays according to the region. So obviously I'm in Manchester. I'm going to have UK holidays, or actually mine are Spanish right now. So I'll fix that right now and do the UK and import. And I can even go by region if you'd like as well. So now I'm also able to view from a glance at the dashboard, basically a summary of my organization. So in this case, I have one person out of office today. If people are clocking in and out, I'll get a real-time feed of the team status. I can see open positions in my applicant tracking system. And then we have our communities. You can kind of think of this like a Factorial Facebook or social media. So I can create posts. These posts can go into specific communities. And then users are able to interact with it and leave comments. They can react to it with emojis. And then as an admin, I can go in and see who's seen the post and where. You can also use this as a vehicle to spread love. So we call it kudos in Factorial. It's a really big part of our company culture. You can give kudos to staff members as well. I'll show you just kind of how we go from adding a candidate into the system, hiring them, upskilling them, and how they would log their hours really fast. So like I was saying earlier, we can upload or connect rather to different job boards, which will then sync into a job opening. And then I can see from here, I have my different candidates for my customer experience agent role. I'm going to get the AI summary of the candidate profile. I can have application question responses here if they ever applied to any other roles. I'm able to leave notes and do an internal evaluation form during the candidate process. I'm able to schedule interviews and connect it directly into my Outlook calendar. Once I'm satisfied with this, I move them to the offer phase, send them the offer letter with the custom message that has drop-down variables and is fillable. And then I can move them to hired. And when I do that, I'm able to fill in. I don't want to do the personal details because I actually want the system to do the work for me. All I would need to do is fill in the basics of, who's their manager going to be, the contract, etc. And then from there, I just pick the start date. And then I would choose the onboarding workflow that I would like to assign to them. And then as you can see here, I have a bunch. So you can have a workflow by the team or by the region or country. And then from there, I would have a workflow that would look like this, where I can go ahead, see all of my different staff members assigned to a specific workflow and where they're at. There we go. So I can see how everyone's progressing. I'm also able to go into the configuration and drag and drop the order. I can see the different sections here. I can have document templates that can be fillable and have drop down variables. So again, if it's time to, let's say, send the contract, I can go ahead and under templates, choose this fillable form that has drop down variables to it. And it has 8 recognized variables here. If I choose to send this to someone like Amelia, it's going to take all the information from her profile that she's filled in and fill in the fields for her. And then at the end, you're going to get a profile that will look something like this. So essentially, if I want to know everything about Gary, I would come right here and I would see, okay, what's the upcoming absences that he may have? How did he do on his last performance review, his goals, what's his contact information, so on and so forth. Also important to note, I'm an admin, obviously, so I have full purview in the system, and I can go in and see the same thing for Charlie. If I go, I'll see his overview. I'll see his contract details, his documents, what does his absence calendar look like over the given period, so on and so forth. For the general staff, they'll only be able to see what we allow them to, essentially. Then continuing on here, we have the org chart. So I can hit expand and see how everything flows from the top down. And if I click on someone, I'll be able to see the teams that they work on and information on their direct reportees. We also have the job tree. This is really cool. And this links really to the performance side of things. So I'm able to assign different roles, and within those roles, levels to them as well. So if I go to product design, for example, I can assign competencies and salary ranges. And this is the most important part when it comes to the performance reviews, because then I can attribute skills that I know that my product designers need to have a mastery in Canva in order to get promoted. And I can use that whenever we're doing performance reviews, and you'll see in a second during the competency assessments. So within the performance reviews, it can be whatever you would like, a template from scratch. It can be a 180 or a 360. But ultimately, the goal is to have something that will look like this. So I'm able to see here my performance score across my team and how each person responded in the performance review. And I'll show an example really quickly of Isabel here. So a couple things that stand out and I would say differentiate us in the market come to light here. Again, the AI functionality. So you're going to get an AI summary of the performance score, the alignment with their manager, the strengths, the areas to improve, and even suggested action plans for Isabel. And you'll get that for every single employee. I can do competency assessments based off of those roles that we saw on the job tree. And I'm also able to then say, okay, well, I need to get to a 4 in Canva in order to get the promotion. I got a 3. So I'm going to request a course in our learning management tool internally in order to get me there. And that becomes the really cool part as well.
Yep.
I'm able to go in and say, okay, I want a new course. And I'm going to say that we're going to do UK GDPR compliance. Oops. And then from there, I'll have basic admin information, but I'm going to skip this for now. The cool part about this is that if I want to add content, I can actually just ask one. So I want a UK GDPR compliance training with quizzes and sections. And it's actually going to fire this up for me. I'm taking a leap of faith here, Gary, because I haven't before. I know it works, so I'm going to take the leap of faith. I saw that you were going to ask something, so I'll let you ask away here.
Yeah. So I had a question. Let me just go here, which I guess does kind of come into the AI features. Can we build our own automations or workflows without coding and use Copilot?
Yeah, 100%. So the same workflow that we looked at for the onboarding section. You can create customized workflows. Okay, there you go. That worked. Awesome.
Amazing.
So I can create my own course content here. And as you can see, I've got my little quiz questions. Again, obviously, we'll make this more specific during the implementation, but this is kind of the springboard. But to get back to your question, yeah, so you'll have customized workflows that you can add in during the implementation. And then again, all of this can also be prompted off of Copilot too.
Yeah.
But so now I have my course content saved. What this will look like when it's fully fleshed out is something like this. So I can go in and I see my knowledge test here, what competencies I'm working on, what's the cost associated for this training, how long is it valid for. And if I look at my participants, then I'm able to go in and see here, I've got, the validity, have they completed the sessions, how do they do on the knowledge test that we sent out to everyone. And then as an admin, I'll get an overview of all insights to do with training. So if I look at, let's do January 2025 to 2026, I'm going to get insights on all of my training information too. This also naturally portends into the next portion of the analytics side, which is pretty cool. So you're going to get general insights on the organization here, like headcount, retention rate, turnover. Where this gets really nice is in the advanced reports, because I can essentially take any type of graphic here or information in the system and regurgitate it as some kind of graphic or table. So I can save dashboards on absence trends. I can save tables on headcount and turnover. Really, what's ever in the system, you can build your dashboards here, and this will actually feed into Power BI as well. So that is the core and the talent portion. The last thing I actually wanted to get into really quickly from the engagement side of things. This is one of the cooler features, I think, in the system, and one that I haven't really seen on the market. So if I want to do a one-on-one for Ian, I can actually go in and prompt the system, and it will, I can say, provide an overview of goals, and it will give me coaching tips essentially on how to be a better manager for Ian. I can also schedule one-on-ones in the system and either go to the meeting via video call or in person. And if I go in person, this screen is going to start lighting up, as you can see here. That's because we actually have an AI transcript that's being taken. So anytime you're doing a one-on-one, and obviously when we complete the reviews, that's the most important thing. I think oftentimes a lot of clients that I work with either not doing a performance review or they do one once a year. So we want to make sure that they're actually keeping up with the goals that they signed off on. This is a great way to do that. So again, we have the enhancement of the notes that we can do. We have the AI chat, so we can ask for prompts in terms of management. And then the transcript here, which is what you'll be able to see anytime you're meeting with staff members as well. So that's everything in talent. I'll quickly go into the time tracking functionality, or just time management, because that's one that comes up a lot. So rota and shifts. I can create coverages for specific locations. So if I go into here, let's do this. So if I wanted to generate a coverage, I'm able to go and say, okay, well, I know that I need one person who is a South Store assistant, and it's going to be a saved managerial shift, and I can add that in. If I go to the week after, I can then generate that coverage and automatically schedule based off of the rules of the person. So for example, when I go to schedule, I would choose the workplace that people are assigned to. And then based off the rules of their contract, the rest days that they're expected to have in order to be compliant in the UK, the minimum amount of rest hours they need, and their maximum amount of working days, I can then run this, and then all the schedules would be automatically applied. So all you need to do is just tell the system the roles that you need, and then it will do the rest. After that, I can also just go in and, in a more kind of simple way, just add the shifts. When I hit publish, this would go live. And then anyone that's impacted by that schedule would receive a notification. And in this case, obviously, you'll notice that I have these holidays here. I actually can't publish if I have shifts assigned to someone that has an absence and isn't allowed to work on a bank holiday. So there's an extra layer of safety. You won't be able to log those hours in. So we'll make
And
sure.
that notification and the shifts and being able to view your shifts, is that all doable from a mobile app?
Yeah, 100%. You can even do shift swapping as well from your phone. That's one that comes up a lot. So for the most part, the people that are actually going in, obviously, if they need to go to a specific workplace that changes all the time, they're probably not bringing their laptop. So they're going to be mostly doing
Yeah.
this on their phone. It's really simple to use too. And then pretty much everything that I've shown today, the only thing that you can't do from the mobile app is the applicant tracking system, where you're going to be going in and looking at different candidates. But then after we have those shifts scheduled, naturally that leans into actually logging the hours. So we already looked at the clock in function here, but I want to get specific and show the different ways that we can handle clock ins. So workplaces. The cool thing about this is that I can assign different workplaces and have different working areas. So for example, this comes up a lot of times whenever I'm working with hotels or restaurants. They want to assign shifts to the front entrance or to the kitchen, etc. Within these workplaces, I can also have a specific address and then set a radius around the system. So if I go to Old Trafford, Stratford, Manchester, UK, there you go. I can then set a geo radius around Old Trafford in this case. So they would only be able to clock in if they're within a half a mile. It can be as well as, it can get as narrow as 55 yards actually. So we can get really specific, but they would only be able to clock in if they're within that geofencing radius from their mobile app. We also have partners. So that's another one that comes up a lot, is what happens if I want them to be on site with a kind of piece of hardware. We've got partners that do that as well. So if you want biometric scanning, like a fingerprint or facial recognition, that's not a problem. We can set that up on site too. And then from there, they'll have a timesheet that will get filled in, and they'll be able to see their balance of hours, if they worked extra hours. And then I'll go back a month so we have a little bit more data here. So if I hit expand all, I can see all the different clock ins, the breaks that they took, where they clocked into. If there was a project as well, this is especially important in the Business Central context. So whatever projects you create in Business Central will flow into Factorial. In my case, I've got a couple projects that I'm working on, but from an organizational view, I can create different projects. And with these projects, I'm able to see the cost to date, the current week and hours evolution. So I'll actually just do in the last month. I can go in and have different phases. We can also see tasks for the project in a Kanban view. I'm also able to have visibility on cost of labor and spending, hours worked. And then the expenses portion of this is really awesome. So I use this probably the most as in real life, just because I'm oftentimes going to the UK and traveling to go meet with clients. So when I go to my spending, you're actually able to have Factorial cards. These are digital cards that you can add to your Apple or digital wallets. So I can then use these cards that are linked to a company bank account. And then I can set rules on them. So for example, if you have a per diem, you can spend 60 pounds a day on food. That's one way we do it. You also have the ability to upload the expenses in the expense forms here too. So if I want to do a mileage expense or a per diem, I'll show an example of a regular one here. So if I go to my bag of receipts, in this case, I've got this receipt here. So it's actually going to scan the document for me.
And that is quite interesting because that's going to bring me on to a question that we have, but we can discuss that at the end, just in terms of the different licensing types. And for example, if someone who's just logging an expense needs a specific license.
Yeah. So with the system in general, the way that we'll bundle it is most pretty much everything else aside from expenses. Uh, I can't pick and choose the functionality. Like if you get
Mm,
the core bundle, everybody
yeah,
has all the features in core. With expenses, we can pick who has it. So we can start from 3 users and we can go all the way up to the entire company if you
yeah,
would like it to be so as well. Um, and this is also nice then because this leans into the projects because I can then upload any expenses that I have to a
yeah.
specific project as well. So oftentimes this is pertinent if you need to log inventory of equipment that you're purchasing for a project,
Mhm.
if it's billable because you're spending meals on behalf of the client, so on and so forth. You're able to upload these expenses for approval as well. And then, of course, you're going to get your spending on this as well. If I go into finance here and I go into my spending, you're able to view all the different expenses that have been paid out and have customized reports for this. I'll go over the last 12 months here, so there's a bit more data. But I can see what expenses I have in what category, by who, so on and so forth. I can also assign budgets and smart policies. So, like I was saying, if they have a maximum of up till 60 pounds, if the category of the purchase is food and it's below 20 pounds, it can get automatically approved. So, there's a lot of different ways we can cut down on the approval process here. You're also able to attach invoices to specific clients as well in the system, raise POs, um, keep track of software and vendors as well. So that kind of all in one that we were talking about earlier, that's
Yeah.
really the goal. And then the last piece of this is the IT. So this is the IT inventory. So I can keep track of devices that are assigned to different users as well and who has what. So I want to pause there because
Mm,
I've been talking a lot.
yeah.
um, but that's my pretty brief run through of Factorial.
Perfect. Yeah, I guess if we just take some of the questions, and for those who still have more questions, please feel free to pop them in the question box. But the first one I have was related to the pricing and how that looks for is per employee, per module, or bundled.
Yeah, so typically it's per person per month or year.
Mhm.
We can do both. Our bundles are usually starting around £6 per person per month, and that's again kind of going back into the that flow chart. You're always getting core no matter what,
Yeah.
and then typically it's core with talent management or core with time management like shifts and time off. So it'll usually start there, and then at our larger packets where you're going in and you're getting a bunch of different features, it would go up to about 1080 pounds per person per month.
Okay. And assuming the minimum term for the monthly users would be just monthly, or is there a kind of a minimum term that you sign into when you?
No, there's no minimum term, so that's really the advantage. Like with the monthly, it's truly month to month. You
Yeah.
have up until 15 days prior to the next billing to cancel, and you wouldn't get billed for the following month. The annual, the advantage of that is you get a 10% discount, and you would pay for the system for the year.
Okay, good. And then in terms of a typical implementation, I know you touched on it briefly earlier, um, but what does that look like from a, a training perspective, implementation, and how much time is required from the internal team?
Yeah, so honestly, it's around 6 sessions. On our larger projects, it can get up to 20. I would say just in terms of what's our typical size of client, I would say the sweet spot is in the hundreds. So, between 1 to 500. We start as low as 15, and we get as high as about, I think our largest client is about 8 or 9,000. So that's not to say we can't do more, but just typically that's where it ends up. Um, on those big projects, you're looking at around 20 weeks. On the smaller ones, it's 4 to 6. In terms of time commitment, it's quite negligible. And like I said, you can go at it faster. So if you wanted to have multiple sessions a week, you could do that too, and that cuts it down in half. But really, it's think of 1 hour per week of sessions, an hour of homework.
Okay. Now, the next one is quite interesting, and we see that quite a lot these days in terms of AI. Is Factorial's AI trained on our data exclusively, or is it mixed with global data sets?
Yeah, it's exclusively trained on the client. So we don't use your data to program the model.
Yeah,
Um, it really just learns off of you. We're compliant with the EU AI Act that's coming
okay,
in 2027.
yeah,
That's important thing to touch on. So, like a really big distinction there that comes up a lot is, for example, in the recruitment side of things, I can have suggestions for candidates. What the system won't do is hire a candidate for you. At the end of the day, when it comes to stuff like bringing people in and making hiring decisions, that has to be a human decision. So the system will guide you, but it won't do anything for you,
mhm,
essentially.
okay. Um, how easy is it to run audit trails?
Vary. So there's a full audit log. Sometimes this can take a second to fire up just because there's so much information on here because this is an old demo environment. But any click that you see in the system, or any click that's been done in the system, you'll see who it was done by, when, for what purpose, etc.
Good. Well, that looks like it is all the questions that we have. Um, yeah,
Cool.
that's it.
Well, thank you for having me.
Great. Thank you so much, Pedro. That was really insightful. Thank you all for joining. Once again, if you do have any questions or if you would like a more personalized session with Pietro and myself, please do reach out info@advantage.co.uk or just reach out to your account manager and we will arrange that for you. Thank you all for joining. Have a great rest of your day and hope to speak to you soon.
Thank you, everyone.
Cheers. Bye.